All right. Hello and welcome. I did a little thing to the audio, so let me know how well you can hear me. If you are in the comment section, I turned some stuff down for the sake of other people using the facility that I'm in. As you can see, my wife is not here yet, but she's on her way. I just went ahead and started because I wanted to vocalize some things that I am planning to do this month so that like I can like hold myself accountable because I've already like spoken it and let people know that this is what I've planned to do or what I've been tasked to do even, right? And even coming off of the Bible study yesterday, Holy Spirit really spoke to the people through the message that we had given them. It was a really good message about grace. And so if you have not watched that, I would advise you to go do so. It's full of wisdom, full of truth, and it'll definitely bless you to have that understanding that is shared in the video. So that's the Coal Revival Study 12/2/2024. Go check that out. And then the thing that I wanted to just go ahead and broadcast, I made a post about it on my Instagram, but I've already kind of said that this is what I was going to do, but so that people don't forget now that the time has come upon us, that I'm going to do a series this December, and it's the series about wielding the sword of the Spirit. And I already taught this message. Honestly, if you like really put together everything that I've said in the Bible studies, all of it kind of falls, or you can make all of it fall under the umbrella of wielding the sword of the Spirit. But I'm going to explicitly teach on it because the Bible study where I explicitly taught on the subject, the recording didn't do too well. But every Friday this December has 4 Fridays. So starting the 6th, and then if you just keep adding 7th, 13th, 20th, and then 27th. So every Friday at 7 p.m. I'm going to be going live, and I would just post a teaching video because like I have all these camera angles, hey, and editing and whatnot, but I don't feel like editing it. It's coming to the end of the year. We're preparing for our fast and all this other stuff. So if I just live stream it, there's no editing to do. And then there's a different operation with live streaming as well. People have the opportunity to watch it and even comment. It adds to the video. But I made a post on YouTube, and so for each Friday, we got 4 topics. The first topic for the subject of wielding the sword of the Spirit is literally, let's identify what this weapon is, right? And it's a sword. Obviously, it's an offensive tool, weapon of warfare, but it's not carnal, as Paul tells us, right? So we're going to identify first, what is the weapon? Second, we're going to identify, secondly, for the other 3 Fridays, we're going to be talking about how do we wield this weapon. And so one way we wield it is prayer, another way is praise, and another way is proclamation. Now, I just made 3 P's because that's how we do it when we do teachings. It's 3 P's. 3, like alliterate, whatever, right? They match, they rhyme, or not rhyme, but you get what I'm saying, right? And so, again, first we're going to identify what is the weapon of warfare. Then we're going to identify 3 ways on how we wield it through praise, prayer, and proclamation. And I might do it in that order. So we'll just dive into all of that. And if you have kept up with me, you know that I've taught on this stuff already. But we're going to do an official thing that kind of end the year. And I'll have more things to add because, we keep growing, I keep learning, and I keep being shown. Is that really what I want to say? And I am continuously being shown out of the Word of God how many things apply to how many things, right? But my wife is here now, and we can get started with our Bible reading. This is from Genesis. Bro, can I yap for a living too? You got to receive grace for it. See, I have the advantage. If you don't have that same advantage, I don't know, it might not work for you, right? Because this is yapping, but because I have the grace for it, people are listening to it. All 100 of the viewers right now. So, man, we need to get this number to 200, then 500, and some thousands, right?
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, so I've literally like been spending so much time on these chapters, and I don't know how that'll look today, but there's so much to identify now because I can see the Bible in a new way. Like I can really identify stuff now. Holy Spirit's really revealing things to me. But let's go ahead and share our screen and get this started in 2 Kings chapter 10 where we left off. Plus screen share. Here we go. There we go. There we go. Oh, you know, if I live stream it, I can just go to the Bible verses that I'm referencing as well. I can do it literally like this. So that'll make it a little interactive. All right, anyway, let's check this out. So, can you see? Lord, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand what it is that you are revealing to us through this word. So we're in 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 1. Now, we just got out of the two chapters where the fulfillment of the word that God gave to the prophet Elijah gets fulfilled in the days of Elisha being in operation as the prophet. Because God told Elijah to go and anoint Jehu as king in Israel, go and anoint somebody whose name starts with an H as a king of Aram. And Elisha, the prophet, is the one that actually goes and does that, you know, mantle transfer, this and that. But Jehu gets the message now. And guys, let me figure out this guy's name. It's like Hazael or something like that.
Hazael?
Is that his name? I think you're right.
Oh wait, I think that was Gehaziel, isn't that what you used to say?
No, that's Gehazi, the guy who's supposed to be king in Aram. I should know his name because it's Hazael, Hazael, king in Aram, and then the day Elisha goes and tells Hazael, like, yeah, you're supposed to be king, Hazael goes and kills the king and usurps the throne. And then, obviously, Aram is an enemy of Israel, but things have to happen. Then Elisha goes and uses somebody else, really, to go and give the word to Jehu. And literally after that, God tells Jehu, he flees for his life. But then Jehu literally takes the message and he moves quickly. He's like, oh, all right. Then he takes his people, some company, and they ride to Jezreel, where Jeroboam, the son of Ahab, is recovering from his injuries. And so Jehu basically goes, kills him. And it turns out that the king in Judah, I forget his name, Hananiah maybe, is also there, because they're very much related, because the king of Judah at this time married a daughter, so he was like stepbrother with Joram, or they call him Joram, Ahaziah. What the heck?
It's just Ahaziah.
No. Ahaziah. There we go. I don't know. All the ILs make me want to say it that way.
I mean, it could work both ways, right?
No. Ahaziah. But this is the king in Judah. He married a daughter of Ahab. Now remember, Ahab was turned away from the Lord because, you know, married Jezebel. And so the same thing happens to Ahaziah. And Ahaziah, like his father Jehoshaphat, is going to war. Or his father's name was also Jehoram. But anyway, he went to war with the Joram, and let's not get confused. For whatever reason, Ahab named his son the same thing that Jehoshaphat named his son. And so anyway, right? So these guys go to war together. Joram in Israel gets hurt. He goes to Jezreel to recover. At the same time, what's going on is the king of Judah, Ahaziah, is going to go and meet him in Jezreel, see how the bro's doing. And then Jehu receives the word that he's supposed to be king. And when Jehu gets the word, he immediately goes to Jezreel to off the king. And that's what we just got done reading. So he does that. He also kills Ahaziah as well. And then he goes and he kills Jezebel. So now we're picking up in 2 Kings chapter 10. Jehu went on a kill streak. But we read now about judgment upon Ahab's house. So it says, now Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. And remember, Samaria is where after Israel split and then it became the nation of Israel, the nation of Judah. Samaria is where Israel as a nation was placed because Judah took the Holy Land, Jerusalem or whatever, right? Where the temple was. It says, and Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the officials of Jezreel, the elders, and to the guardians of the children of Ahab, saying, now keep in mind, right? Jehu's the one that's taking the throne now because he's received the word. But Ahab had 70 sons. And the children of Ahab were the ones that were currently seated on the throne. So Jehu has people to take care of, right? Now, this is all happening by word of the Lord, though. So Jehu sends letters to everybody. It says, and now when this letter comes to you, since your master's sons are with you, as well as the chariots and horses, and our fortified cities, and a fortified city, and the weapons. Select the best and most capable of your master's sons, and seat him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. So basically, let's go to war. But they feared greatly and said, Behold, the two kings do not stand firm before him. How then can we stand? And the one who was in charge of the household, and the one who was in charge of the city, and the elders and the guardians of the children sent word to Jehu, saying, We are your servants. So they easily, basically, turn loyalty. And everything that you tell us, we will do. We will not appoint any man king. Do what is good in your sight. Then he wrote them a letter a second time, saying, If you are on my side, then listen to me. Take the heads of the men, their master's sons, and come to me at Jezreel about this time tomorrow. So he's saying, kill all of Ahab's children, all his boys, and bring me their heads tomorrow. It says, now the king's sons, 70 men, were with the great people of the city who were raising them. It says, when the letter came to them, they took the king's sons and slaughtered them, 70 in all, and put their heads in baskets and sent them to him at Jezreel. When the messengers came and informed him, saying, they have brought the heads of the king's sons, and said, blah, 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 morning. Now in the morning he went out and stood and said to all the people, you are innocent. Behold, I conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all of these? Know then that nothing of the word of the Lord, which the Lord spoke concerning the house of Ahab, shall fall to the earth, for the Lord has done what he spoke through his servant Elijah. So all of this, basically destruction of Ahab's house, Jehu's letting everybody know that this was done according to the word of the Lord. So nobody's guilty here. So Jehu killed all who remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men, his acquaintances, his priests, until he left him without a survivor. Then he set out and went to Samaria. This is just me being on a tangent, but imagine if this is how King Saul would have acted. We would have never heard anything about David. Then he set out and went to Samaria. On the way, while he was at Beth-Eked of the shepherds, Jehu encountered the relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and he said, who are you? And they answered, we are the relatives of, the king you just killed. And we have come down to greet And we have come down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen mother. Then he said, take them alive. So they took them alive and slaughtered them at the pit of Beth-Eked, 42 men, and he left none of them. All right, so Ahaziah, king in Judah, and Ahaziah had relatives. They came down to basically greet Joram and whatever, right? He wanted to meet, I don't even get it. They wanted to meet Jezebel, and they wanted to meet Joram, who was the king that Jehu just killed. And so they came all the way from Judah, wanted to meet these people. Jehu greets them, says, okay, and basically just killed them. He took them under a false whatever, right? And he got rid of them. These are people of Judah. So it says, now when he had gone from there, he encountered Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. And he greeted him and said to him, is your heart right, just as my heart is with your heart? And Jehonadab answered, it is. Jehu said, if it is, give me your hand. He did that, and he pulled him up to him into the chariot. So he hopped in the whip. Then he said, come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So he had him ride in his chariot. Next time I'll pick somebody up and take them to church. This is what I'm going to say. Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. And then we're going to ride in the chariot. It says, when he came to Samaria, he killed all who remained to Ahab in Samaria until he had eliminated them in accordance with the word of the Lord, which he spoke to Elijah. And see, this is the thing we were talking about with grace and truth. Because Jehu did all of these things according to the word of the Lord, he didn't face any opposition from the people that should have opposed him. The ones that were currently serving under Ahab's house, all of them said, no, we'll do what you want us to do, because truth was established. And, it was established to do something, but that something was in judgment to basically to the wickedness that Ahab had done, that God had prophesied, because he did those things, this is going to happen to your household. So picking up in verse 18, it says, then Jehu gathered all the people and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little. Oh, yeah, Jehu was actually really wise. Check this out. I'm glad they put this title here because I forgot that this has happened. So it says Jehu destroys Baal worshippers. And so look what he says here. He talks to the people and says, Ahab only served Baal a little bit. He lies to them and says, but I will serve Baal a lot. Now summon to me all the prophets of Baal, all his worshippers and all his priests. Let no one go missing because I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Whoever is missing shall not live. So he basically comes up with his rules. Bring all the Baal worshippers. Let's have a Diddy party, right? It says, but Jehu did it in deception in order to eliminate the worshippers of Baal. And Jehu said, proclaim a holy assembly for Baal. And they proclaimed it. Then Jehu sent word throughout Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a person left who did not come. And when they entered the house of Baal was filled from one end to the other. So it was packed. And he said to the one who was in charge of the wardrobe, bring out garments for all the worshippers. So he brought out 23. Then Jehu entered the house of Baal with Jehonadab, son of Rechab, and he said to the worshippers of Baal, search carefully and see to it that there is here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but only those who serve Baal. It says, when they entered to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, or then they entered. Now, bold in for some reason. Now Jehu has stationed for himself 80 men outside, and he said, the one who allows any of the men who we bring into your hands to escape shall give up his life in exchange. Then it came about, as soon as he had finished offering the offerings, that Jehu said to the guard and to the royal officers, go in, kill them, don't let anyone come out. So they did exactly what happened, or exactly what he said. It says, and the guard and the royal officers threw them out and went to the sanctuary of the house of Baal. They brought out the memorial stones of the house of Baal and burned them. They also tore down the memorial stones of Baal, tore down the house of Baal, and made it a latrine, as it is to this day, where people go to use the bathroom or relieve themselves. So Jehu eradicated, love the vernacular here, Baal from Israel. However, as for the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, into which he misled Israel, from these, check this out. Jehu's been having a great run, but this is what happens. It says, so it all started with Jeroboam, right? This is a guy that took the kingdom from Solomon by prophecy, or God said that he would do that. He led Israel into idol worship, and it says Jehu did not desist the same sins, the same wickedness. Jehu continued them, including the golden calves that were at Bethel and at Dan. Yet the Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in performing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab in accordance with everything that was in my heart, your sons to the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. But Jehu was not careful to walk in the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all of his heart. He did not desist from the sins of Jeroboam, into which he misled Israel. So, let's just keep reading. In those days, the Lord began to cut off pieces from Israel, and Hazael defeated them. So remember, this is king of Aram. Defeated them throughout the territory of Israel. This literally, when God revealed to the prophet Elisha what Hazael was supposed to do, it brought Elisha to tears because he saw how much destruction this guy was going to bring to the children of Israel. So he's basically murking them. It says from the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, Reubenites, Manassites, Aurora, which is by the valley of the Arnon, that is Gilead and Bashan. So check that out. So Jehoahaz, interesting. Now, as for the rest of the acts of Jehu and everything that he did, okay, let's say it now. So Jehu did well in performing what God wanted him to do, but Jehu, didn't desist. He persisted in doing the same wicked, abominable things that the kings before him did. And for that reason, God blessed him so much, but no further, saying he'd always have a lamp to the fourth generation. But we see, if that's the case, Jehu could have had a lamp till who knows when. But obviously this had to stop at some point because Jesus had to come. But let's just bring this into account though. The blessing didn't have to end where it ended. But because Jehu would not turn from sin, God could only bless him so much and no further, right? So if you want to hold on to sin, you're only going to go so far. And even still, even your children are only going to go so far as long as the parent or whoever's supposed to be guarding them holds on to sin. Like if you're the head of the house and you're holding on to sin, you're going to limit the entire household under you. And that's happened. That's what happened. So it didn't even matter. It does not matter how you start necessarily. It really matters how you end. And actually that is true because all of us started in sin. It matters where we end up though. In life and life more abundantly, right? In righteousness. So it doesn't matter how you start. So we can read about Jehu. We can even read about Solomon and see he started very well, extremely well. But at some point, they started to pull back, or at some point they compromised, right? And they consistently kept this compromise, and that ended up ruining it at some point for those who were to come. Where now Solomon's children have to worry about people taking the kingdom from them, and then Jehu has to imagine coming to the family reunion. This is a joke, and everybody's laughing. Y'all are making fun of the one family member, right? And you start laughing, but you're the easy target. And you're the one who's a fifth generation son, and you didn't get to be king. And I know you're not laughing. You didn't even get to sit on the throne. But anyway, but it's just, what's the point? What's the point in starting well and finishing abysmal? If you're going to finish abysmal, don't even start. It's just a waste of time. That's just being lukewarm. Because things don't just start off lukewarm, right? They're either all the way cold or they're all the way hot. Over time, it becomes warm. Useless. Okay. So when did we finish reading? Did I finish reading chapter 10? I did not. Okay. Let's finish this. Now, as for the rest of the acts of Jehu and everything that he did and all of his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehu laid down with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and his son Jehoahaz became king in his place. So the time which Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years. That's a long time. Back then, at least. So, even now. Verse 1 of chapter 11, it says, when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, remember, Ahaziah was a king in Judah that Jehu killed. So when Athaliah, maybe that's how you say it, Athaliah. Can you see, what does that name mean? Second Kings 11, verse 1. Man.
I was going to read it.
I know, but you had it all the way down here. Come on, we're up here.
Afflicted of the Lord. That's what it means.
So when she saw that her son was dead, she arose and eliminated all the royal children. It says, but Jehoshaphat, what does Jehoshaphat mean?
Jehovah has sworn.
So when but Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and abducted him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and put him at his nurse in the bedroom. Put him and his nurse in the bedroom. Okay. Many characters here, but what happens? Jehu kills the king in Judah. The king's mother in Judah finds out about that. Oops, let me pull this back up. The king's mother finds out about that, and you know what she does? She's like, okay, I'm just going to kill all the sons for some reason. But let's keep in mind, what is this lady's name? Afflicted of the Lord. And so, in this lady's, not defense, but you can tell, oh, I'm so afflicted. She probably had a woe is me mentality. which is what led her to even do that dumb stuff. Let me just kill all the sons. But it turns out that Ahaziah had a sister with a brain, and she goes and she takes his son and hides him. So she takes one of the children who is, bound to be sitting on the throne, and she puts him in a secret place. I messed up and disconnected my Bible. So let me pull this back up, though. I mean, you guys can probably still see it, unless it's frozen now, but bear with me 1 second. Okay, so now we're back. So let's continue to read. Was verse 3? So he was kept hidden with her in the house of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. That's interesting. Now in the 7th year of Jehoiada, maybe it's Jehoiada. Where did he even come from, though? Jehoiada. Let's find out. In the 7th year, a random person sent orders and brought the captains of hundreds of the Karites and of the guards and brought them to himself at the house of the Lord. Then he made a covenant with them and put them under oath at the house of the Lord and showed them the king's, son. And he commanded them, saying, this is the thing that you shall do. A third of you who come in on the Sabbath and keep watch over the king's house. A third also shall be at the gate, sir, and a third also at the gate behind the guards. Shall keep watch over the house for defense, and 2 parts of you, all who go out on the Sabbath, shall also keep watch over the house of the Lord for the king. So grandma is now sitting on the throne as she kills all of her grandchildren, pretty much, right? Or she suspects. But one of the guys, his name is Jehoiada, finds out that one of Ahaziah's sons has been kept in the temple, and they're basically protecting him. He brought a bunch of men, and they're protecting him. Verse 8 says, then you shall surround the king, each with his weapon in his hand, and whoever comes within the ranks shall be put to death, and you are to be with the king when he goes out and when he comes in. So, I mean, he has to be maybe max 8 years old, but it says he was in the temple hiding for 6 years. So the captains of hundreds acted in accordance with everything that Jehoiada the priest, commanded. And each one of them took his men who were there, or who were to come in on the Sabbath, along with those who were to go out on the Sabbath. And they came to Jehoiada the priest. What does his name mean? There's the J, I just realized. Into verse 9.
Jehovah knows.
God knows. So the priest gave the captains of hundreds the spears and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of the Lord. The guards stood, each with his weapons in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left of the house, by the altar and by the house around the king. And then he brought the king's son out and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. And they made him king and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, long live the king. That's so interesting, because the king is obviously like a child right now, but there's truth here. This is the man that's received the grace to sit on the throne, in accordance with the way God set things up. And even though it's a boy, he's supposed to be on the throne. And all of these men of war are behind it. When Athaliah heard the noise of the guards and of the people, they came to the people at the house of the Lord, and she looked, and behold, the king was standing by the pillar according to the custom, with the captains and the trumpeters beside the king, and all the people of the land were joyful and were blowing trumpets. Then she tore her clothes and cried out, conspiracy, conspiracy. And Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of hundreds who were appointed over the army and said to them, bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her, but are put to death with the sword. For the priest said she is not to be put to death at the house of the Lord. So they seized her, and when they brought her to the horses' entrance of the king's house, she was put to death there. Look at that. She was put to death where the horses come in and out. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord, the king, and the people, that they would be the Lord's people, and between the king and the people. And all the people of the land came to the house of Baal and tore it down. They thoroughly smashed his altars and his images in pieces, and they killed Matan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. Then the priest appointed sentries over the house of the Lord, and he took the captains of hundreds and the Kerites and the guards and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and came by way of the gate of the guards to the king's house, and he sat on the throne of the kings. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword at the king's house. Jehoash was 7 years old, when he became king. Crazy. Did we figure out what his name means?
I thought so.
I know Jehoiada was God knows. Athaliah was afflicted of the Lord.
Given by the Lord.
Jehoash means given by the Lord. Joash. All right, here we go. So in the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So he was, as many years as Jehu reigned is how old the king in Judah was. And he reigned for 40 years in Jerusalem. Oh, wait. We're talking about who? Okay. We're talking about Joash. He reigned for 40 years in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in Judah. And his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Oh, we looked at what Jehoshaphat meant. And Jehoshaphat meant something. Anyway, Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days that Jehoiada the priest instructed him. It says, only the high places did not end. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense on the high places. Now, obviously, this is bad because they had a temple. The temple was for the purpose of making sacrifices. But the people were going to do these things at other places. And one of the commandments was to offer sacrifices where God would erect his name or something like that, right? So God appointed a place and the people aren't listening to that, right? Which is interesting. They're giving offerings at places that have not been appointed of the Lord. It says, then Joash said to the priest, all the money of the sacred offerings which is brought into the house of the Lord is current money, both the money of each man's assessment and all the money which all the money of the sacred offerings which is brought into the house of the Lord in current money, both the money which is from the men's assessment and all the money which anyone's heart prompts him to bring into the house of the Lord. The priests are to take it for themselves, each for his acquaintance, and they shall repair damage to the house wherever any damage is found. So if you don't believe in giving money, well, go read 2 Kings 12, verses 4 and 5. It says, but it came about that in the 23rd year of King Jehoash, the priest had not repaired any damage to the house. Gosh. So King Jehoash summoned Jehoiada the priest, my goodness, and the other priests, and said to them, why haven't you repaired anything in the house? Now then, you are not to take any more money from the acquaintances, but give it up for the damage to the house. The priests then agreed that they would not take any more money from the people, nor would they repair damage to the house. Instead, Jehoiada the priest took a chest and drilled a hole in its lid and put it beside the altar on the right side as one comes into the house of the Lord. And the priest who guarded the threshold put in it all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. When they saw that there was a great amount of money in the chest, the king's scribe and the high priest went up and tied it up in bags and counted the money that was found in the house of the Lord. And they handed the money which was assessed over to those who did the work, who had the oversight of the house of the Lord, and they paid it out to the carpenters and the builders who worked on the house of the Lord, and to the masons and the stone cutters, and for buying and everything that was laid out for the house to repair. However, there were not made for the house of the Lord silver cups. Okay, so even back then, right, we had people that were still abusing the offerings. But they finally did it right. But it says they did not make silver cups, shears, bowls, trumpets, any receptacles of gold or receptacles of gold or receptacles of silver from the money which was brought into the house of the Lord. For they gave that to those who did the work, and with it they repaired the house of the Lord. Moreover, they did not require any accounting from the men into whose hands they gave the money to pay to those who did the work, because they acted faithfully. Okay. The money from the guilt offerings and the money from the sin offerings was not brought into the house of the Lord. It belonged to the priest. Then Hazael, the king of Aram, went up and fought against Gath and captured it. And Hazael was intent on going up against Jerusalem. So now he wants to make war against Judah, the king of Aram. So Jehoash, king of Judah, took all the sacred offerings that Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, his fathers, kings of Judah, had consecrated, and his own sacred offerings, and all the gold that was found in the treasuries of the house of the Lord in the king's house, and sent them to the king of Aram. Then he withdrew from Jerusalem. Okay. So he gave king of Aram an offering to keep him away from Judah. All right, so now as for the rest of the acts of Joash and everything that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So they're basically saying, go and read Chronicles. And his servants rose up and formed a conspiracy, and they struck and killed Joash at the house of Millo as he was going down to Silla. It says, for Jozachar, the son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, the son of Shomer, his servant struck him and he died, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and his son Amaziah became king in his place. In the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, became king over Israel at Samaria, and he reigned for 17 years. He did evil in the sight of the Lord and followed the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, into which he misled Israel and did not turn away from those things. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he continually handed them over to Hazael, king of Aram, and to Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael. Interesting. Then Jehoahaz appeased the Lord, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw the oppression of Israel, how the king of Aram oppressed them. And the Lord gave Israel a savior, so that they escaped from under the hand of the Arameans, and the sons of Israel lived in their tents as previously. Nevertheless, they did not abandon the sins of idol worship into which Israel was misled. Rather, they walked in them, and the Asherah also remained standing in Samaria. For he left to Jehoahaz no more of the army than 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 infantry, because the king of Aram had eliminated them and made them like the dust at threshing. So they had been so war-torn and defeated that they only had 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, an entire nation. This is the other 10 tribes. They only had 10 chariots between them and 10,000 men to go to war. Now, as for the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz and all that he did and his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehoahaz laid down with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and his son Joash became king in his place. In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, these guys have the same name too, the son of Jehoahaz, became king over Israel in Samaria. So Joash and Jehoash are literally the same name.
There's three things that sound the same. Not the same, but.
So Jehu had a son, Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz had a son. His name is Jehoash, which is the same name as the current king of Judah. So he reigned for 16 years in Samaria. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not turn away from all the sins of Jeroboam. He walked in them. Now, as for the rest of his acts, aren't they in... Now, as for the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did and his might, which he fought against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel? The Amaziah's father's name is also Jehoash, but Amaziah is now king of Judah. It says, so now Joash laid down with his fathers. This is the one that's in Israel. And Jeroboam sat on his throne, and Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Check this out. So when Elisha became... Wait. We're in 13 already? Did I skip something?
No.
I did?
You read the last one fast.
I did?
Yeah, you barely even...
Wow.
Or you haven't been stopping, you're just reading.
Okay. Because I was thinking in my head, I want to get to 13 because there's a event that happens here. And when I started reading, I was like, oh, we're already there. This is something about a bow. Okay. So when Elisha became sick with illness of which he was to die,
But how did
interesting.
he get sick?
I mean, I don't even know. Now I've heard Rodney Howard Brown say this one time. Uh, I'm not going to doubt the validity of what something Rodney Howard Brown says. It was interesting though, because it is crazy. Like, how does the man of God get sick? But I mean, that's the thing. Because remember we were talking about how he asked for a double portion of the anointing that was on Elisha or Elijah, and it was like that's a hard thing because how do you give somebody double of what you have? Because you don't even have double of what you have. But he still said, nevertheless, if you see me when I go, the Lord will do it for you. And so he was saying, like, people are desiring other men's mantles, talking about, I want a double portion of what this man has. It's like, but then look at the end of Elisha's life. Like, was that really something valiant to be asking for? Because look how Elisha ended up. You do all these great things just to end up on your deathbed because of sickness.
Oh, because Elijah died because of why?
Elijah's not dead.
Oh.
We'll find out in Chronicles, but Elijah is not dead. He's just taken somewhere else. But now Elisha, like, I don't even know why. I don't understand why either. But Rodney Howard Brown kind of connected that desire of his to have a double portion of this or whatever to kind of be a cause of why he even ended up in this situation. But the thing that Rodney Howard Brown, what he said was much more like threshed out than what I can say. But he made a connection between his desire for the double portion and the end of his life ending, or coming to the end of his life because of a sickness, which is not very becoming of a man of God. Like, was he sick because of sin? I think the Bible would be clear on that. But nevertheless, the Bible does tell us Elisha is to die by this sickness. Joash, the king of Israel, came down to him and wept over him and said, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And Elisha said to him, take a bow and arrows. So he took a bow and arrows. Now he's talking to the king of Israel. Then Elisha said to the king of Israel, lay your hand on the bow. And he laid his hand on it. Then Elisha put his hand on the king's hands. And he said, open the window toward the east. And he opened it. Then Elisha said, shoot. So he shot. And he said, the Lord's arrow of victory, and the arrow of victory over Aram. For you will defeat the Arameans at Aphek until you have put an end to them. Then he said, take the arrows. So he took them, and he said to the king of Israel, strike the ground. So he struck it 3 times and stopped. Then the man of God became angry at him and said, you should have struck 5 or 6 times, then you would have struck Aram until you put an end to it. But now you shall strike Aram only 3 times. And this is what's crazy. And the video I was watching, I kept watching it because the guy said something about this. And it's a very simple thing. Now, Elisha, the man of God, gets mad at the king because he only struck the ground 3 times. Elisha wanted him to strike it 5 or 6 times. To do what? To basically get the fulfillment of the request. And so, obviously, the man of God, Elisha, he knows the mind of God. He's been given the spirit to do so, right? To even prophesy on behalf of the Lord, right? And so he says this is a reflection of how the Lord is with us. Where some of us are like, we don't want to make the request that we really want because, well, who knows why, right? It's like, just ask for all of it. Why just ask for some of it?
Trying to be humble.
Yeah, trying to like fake humble, right? Lord, I just need just enough, right? Lord, just give me a few victories. And then the man of God gets mad at him. He's like, why didn't you just keep going until you got complete and total victory? Right? He only struck it 3 times. He said you should have done it 5 or 6 times because the Lord is able to do even more. Right? And it's like, you're not a bother to God to make a request. Right? And if you can believe God for something, why not just believe God for all of that something? And like, you take it into the realm of like trying to believe God for like finances or something, right? It's like, if you want something, why not just believe God for that something? And like Pastor Jonathan said it before, like, if you would get a loan believing for a building, why not just believe God for all the money so that you don't have to get a loan? It's the same faith to pay the loan off should be the same faith, or should rather be applied to just have the money in general so that you don't have to be a borrower, right? Taking a loan is like striking the ground 3 times. Sure, you'll get it, but
He didn't tell him like why.
no, he didn't. But I mean, that's the case though. It's really, what's the word? Jesus, like, God doesn't usurp somebody's will, right? A man can literally squander everything, give himself over to so much, but one thing that God won't take from a man is his own personal will. We see that in the life of the prodigal son. He went as left as he could go, but he still didn't lose his ability to make his own decisions. And then it says he came to himself. So he turned his brain on again. He said, you know what? Let me just go back to my father's house. Because he lost everything except for his ability to choose. And so that's something that God leaves us with. And so with the man of God, right? In this case, or let's take it to Jesus now. Jesus literally comes up, or blind people literally come up to Jesus, and Jesus asks them, what do you want me to do? Obviously, Jesus knows they're blind. You can see this when somebody's blind. But still, Jesus asks the person, what do you want me to do? Because God doesn't usurp the will. He's not going to force the blessing on you. And then we see as well, people need to believe. And Jesus tells the man with the son who's demon-possessed, right? If only you believe, all things are possible to those who believe. Sometimes people come up to Jesus, and they make the request of him, and Jesus asks them, you believe I can do this? They say yes, and then Jesus does it. And so Jesus is kind of like proving somebody's will / belief, right? And so we see here in this case though, he was gonna let the king have it as he believed for it. And it happened in this way, I would say, for our sakes, so that we can see what we're talking about now. Why not just believe God for complete and total victory? Why not just believe God for the house that you want, for the money to even pay for it down, right? So that you don't have to keep paying and have interest and all that stuff. Just believe God for all of it, right? It's actually foolish to do what the king just did here. I just do it a couple times. God, Ephesians 3:20, God can and is willing to do exceedingly and abundantly more. Exceedingly and abundantly more than whatever you could ask or whatever you could think. So let him prove it. It's foolish not to let God prove himself. And in the video, they brought up a story about somebody who was a great man, a conqueror. I forgot the guy's name, but he was talking about how he was at this like victory dinner, and they had just got done conquering a city. And then at the victory dinner with all the generals and great people in the celebration, they're eating, right? You don't just walk into that place. You don't just walk to that place and make demands. But one of the officers comes up to the table, comes up to basically the guy that's in charge, and he makes a request of him. He came boldly. It's all these great men. They're eating at the table. Some random guy comes up to the one that's in charge, and he makes a request. He says, I want you to give me this portion of what they had just conquered. Silence. Because everybody heard. It's crazy. You don't just see that. But the guy in charge takes out the deed, writes it, signs it over to him, gives it to him, and that's just the end of it. And so all the generals are looking like you think, like, that's really disrespectful. That was really arrogant. But then the guy in charge, he responds and tells him why he basically complied with the request. Because he says that person made a request that was befitting of me, right? He didn't ask for some small thing. He asked something that, it was like a worthy request, right? It's like when you, like, so I'm not really telling this and giving it justice, but nevertheless, right? People confuse boldness for arrogance. But that guy approached the throne boldly, made a bold request, and the person he made the request of was satisfied, was pleased with the level of request that he had made. He said, that's something worthy of me to fulfill. So he fulfilled it. Right? Oh, you believe I can do this? So really, it was like the king, the guy that was in charge, he took that as an opportunity to flex. his own stature and might and power. So really what that showed everybody else at the table was, this is what I can do. Simply just give people portions of land at a request. Now that's a man though, and that's a true story. I forgot that, I think it's like Confucius or something was the king, or whatever Confucius was. But if that's how a man felt, imagine how God feels. When we come to him and ask for literally the impossible. We quote the verse, literally all things are possible to those that believe. All things are possible with God. With God, nothing is impossible. But we don't make those impossible requests. We strike the ground 3 times. Because the Arameans were literally decimating Israel. Right? The king was like, oh, I'll just get a victory here. I'll be satisfied with that. But the man of God tells him, you could have just utterly destroyed Aram forever. You could have put it into them forever. But instead, he wants to make a request that wasn't even worthy of the Lord's capabilities. So verse 20 says, and Elisha died, and they buried him. Now the marauding bands of the Moabites would invade the land in the spring of the year. It says, and as they were burying a man, behold, they saw a marauding band, and they threw the man into the grave of Elisha. And when the man touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet. So you hear Pastor Ted say this. Something interesting about the double portion that Elisha received is you can count it up. And Elijah, give or take, Elijah only did 8 miracles in his lifetime that are documented in the Bible. But we can count and see that Elisha, up to this point, before we just read what we read, did 15. And then he dies. Some dead man falls into his grave, touches Elisha's bones, and that dead man comes back to life.
I remember you guys were talking about this before.
Yeah, and so this is the 16th miracle of Elisha, and it's just so crazy because the last miracle he does it, and he's dead. But the anointing is still there. The anointing upon him is still there. But, I need to keep reading before I say what I want to say. Now Hazael, king of Aram, had opposed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them and had compassion on them. So look, gracious and merciful on them, and turned to them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he was unwilling to eliminate them or cast them away from his presence until now. It says, when Hazael, king of Aram, died, his son Ben-Hadad became king in his place. Then Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, again took from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had been taken, he had taken in war from the hand of his father Jehoahaz. 3 times Joash defeated him and recovered the cities of Israel. And we'll end here. Yeah, we'll end here. Wow, we went through what? 10, 11, 12. 4 chapters. Did you put that in? All right. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. It would be good to start, because I really like 2 Kings chapter 15. But we'll get there Thursday. And then remember, Friday we'll have another live stream starting the series for December. So we'll have 3 live streams each week. Yeah, 3 live streams each week.
Nice.
Yep. But yeah, that's all I have. I don't really have anything else to say. But if you remember anything from this episode, just keep in mind, right? Don't pity pat with the Lord. Ask God, request of the Lord things that are worthy for him to fulfill. Right? Don't just strike the ground 3 times. Do it 5 or 6 times. Let God prove himself. Believe for all of it. Believe for the whole thing. Believe for the good and perfect gifts. Request the good and perfect gifts. Because God is able to those that believe and walk uprightly. All right. Love you. God bless you. Yada, yada.